and we wanted to save all those trees because they not only provide buffer between our property and the parking lot, but also these trees provide the buffer between our property and the single family on the east side. So that's just one of the concept. Second was to keep up with the neighborhood, the streetscape. We had townhouse development on the north and single family on the west side of the Cedar Hill Road. So we like to keep the same heights and scale for the building to reflect into our building. And the second and the third one is that we have a new cross block or walkway connecting the Cedar Hill Road and Shelburne on the north side of our property, which allows us to give the frontage of our building towards that parkland and also to the Cedar Hill Road. So with that, there is, we don't have to mention about the bed green and the Inner Guide 82, which is a bylaw which we have to follow. At the same time, we will have the conduits for the solar heating of the hot water in the development. Going into the next one, these are the photos of the neighborhood showing all around the property. Here is the site plan which shows that all the trees on the south side of the property and few on the right, on the east side of the property are maintained. And for that, we provided the pervious surface for driveway alongside the trees so that the water can get to the roof line. We also tried to do was to allow not too much of excavation in there. So we maintain the existing grades on the side and build from there. So our building footing is far away from the trees and it will be just the footing going into the ground wherever the exterior walls are. These are the floor plans, and the only thing to see in this whole plan is on the bottom layer, bottom plan. We show one adaptable housing washroom per unit in there. Site plan, the elevations, the top elevations is the elevation from the north, which is facing that parkland or the crosswalk. The elevation on the middle left, that's the elevation to the east, and the right of that is the elevation facing the Cedar Hill Road, and down bottom the elevation faces the parking area and the big trees on the south side. Here, this shows very clearly the lower, the longitudinal section in the middle of the project, of the sheet, shows that the grade, existing grade which shown in notice, are maintained and very little excavation has been provided in that. Now this shows the perspective view showing our building to the right and the existing townhouse project done by Mr. Gardner on the left. That is the one we were matching up or keeping the streetscape and the scale with. This perspective shows the southwest portion of our building with the ramp going down. The only change is there. The wall which shows on the side of the ramp will have the stone facing on top of that, which was recommended by the advisory design panel. So we will provide that. This is another view from the northwest of the property, looking at our project on the right and the James Gardner's townhouses on the left. This shows the trees in the background. Those are the trees which we have to retained, and it shows the architecture also very much similar to James Gardner in keeping with the streetscape. Now this is landscape plan with Judy. Talk about.
Good evening. We had three approaches to the landscape on this particular project. And the first one was to create an attractive landscape for, of course, the residents who were living in the building. And we've tried to accomplish that with providing small yards to the north, which is facing that public walkway. I'm going to see if I can. Oops. I don't know. Can I? Yeah. Anyway, to the north, which faces the public walkway. And then also we've designed an attractive front yard which faces Cedar Hill Road. And with the idea that both of those frontages would have small picket fences which would be visible then, so for people who are walking by they can also appreciate the landscaping of the garden areas. There's also going to be some additional planting on the east side of the property, which is between this unit and the residential house behind. And there'll be some trees and some shrubs in there, as well as a bench and some bicycle racks for visitors. The second thing that we were trying to do was, of course, to maintain and even enhance the pedestrian network. And so there's going to be an additional street tree added in front of this particular unit, which will match the exactly same tree as in front of Gardner's Green. And of course I already mentioned the fences and being able to sort of look in, and so when you're going down that pathway it won't feel as enclosed. Right now there's a higher fence there, so that will be that picket fence which will almost mimic exactly the fence on the Gardner's Green project. And the other item was, of course, what Mizra talked about was the protection of the trees. And I just want to add a couple of comments about that, is that there's been a lot of additional planting underneath those trees and some understory trees that have been planted, because I understand those trees potentially have a limited lifespan, and so the idea is that those trees in the undergrowth will grow up. And so in the 20 years or something that it's been expected that perhaps those trees may, die, I guess. There'll be those trees that will come up underneath and to help buffer that parking lot from this particular building. And also the permeable pavers throughout the entire drive aisle. There's going to be some concrete banding as well as some concrete under the garbage enclosure, but those will all be floated on top of the roots. And that's design has been, or will be, in consultation with the project arborist, who we've been discussing that with. And so in conclusion, we feel that these elements will help to provide a comfortable residential environment as well as an attractive building for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Question? Councilor German.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you.
Could we,
To the speaker, if you
come
could
forward?
return to the mic. Yeah. Thank you.
You are.
Just looking on the north side, where
Yes.
you have some patios.
Yes.
That setback looks like it's only about 3 meters. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe Mizra can tell you exactly what it is. Just so you know, there's an upper balcony and then a lower patio.
Yeah, I've seen that on the plans.
Yeah.
I think it might be a little bit more to the building face, but to the upper projection.
3 meters to the edge of the upper deck.
Okay, and the east side setback looks even smaller. Just
Sorry,
wonder what
yeah,
that
just a
is.
second. 4.5.
Okay, is that the property line that's showing behind the building? Because it shows it smaller than the one on the,
The property line is on the edge of the green.
yeah,
So
okay.
basically beside the building is a walkway, then there's a planting area, and then
I'm just wondering about the scale, because that's definitely smaller on what's being shown than the setback on the north side.
well, it's 3 meters to the edge of the upper deck, which isn't really that visible. There's a
No,
a
no,
dotted
I'm
line.
talking about the one on the east side. Appears to be smaller on the drawing in front of us there than the setback on the north side.
I see it as being larger, but
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
yeah, so if you look on the site plan, have you got the site plan in front of you?
I do.
Yeah.
I think your drawing is probably a little bit out, the one that was on before.
Any other questions?
Councilor Brownell, one more question.
Thank you. To the speaker. So I'm wondering about, that you're going to be putting in a fence, so the single-family home on Glen Craig, 1584, will have a fence, and you'll also have planting?
Yes, that's correct.
So will the plantings grow up, or are they just low?
There are a few smaller trees, like sort of columnar trees in there. There is a bit of limitation because there's a sewer line going through there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's 2 smaller trees and then a hedge along the edge of the fence.
Of the fence?
And it will also be a wooden fence in that location, so a solid wooden fence.
And the property owner is fine with that, the neighboring property owner?
Yeah, maybe perhaps Jamie could talk to that.
Okay. And then my other comment is where the bike parking is. I
Yes.
guess this is visitor parking. Is it
Yes.
visible from a window so someone can actually see that? We just don't like bike parking where there's no eyes on.
It's right beside the front door of one of the units, so,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
okay. So,
that's it.
It's my understanding that they have no issue with that fence there.
They're fine with it?
I'm under the understanding that they are.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members of the public wish to speak to council on this item? Anyone?
Good evening, Chair, Honorable Mayor, staff, councilors, Ken Whitcroft, 1044 Inverness Road. Basically, I was reading through the planner's report on this one, and on would be page 75 of your package, or 12 of the actual or planning report, or top headline says climate change. And I looked at it and I'm reading through it and see that we have some things. And I come to number 4 called food security. And I highlighted it. And I went through the rest of the bullets to find out where the statement is for food security. And there's absolutely no bullet or no reference to food security. Climate change, we know, is here. We're seeing it. We're seeing extensive drought this year because of climate change. Not only here in BC, and not only here on the island, we're seeing it throughout Midwest and Mid-Central Canada, United States. It's serious. Now the problem here is that we move forward, food security is going to become very, very important. In fact, the future, food is probably going to be more expensive than land and housing, because it isn't going to be around. It isn't going to be here as readily as it is today. And climate change is also the fact is that most of the food that comes to this island is trucked here from either California or like Thrifties and all their complements. That stuff all comes from the East Coast. Huge carbon footprint on where our food comes for this island. We need to start moving towards food security. Sustainable development has many broad aspects to it. One, you have land for the people. Two, you have land for food. Two, you have water, water for the people, water for the food to be grown. The thing is, right now, we are out exceeding the number of people on the land for the food. We're only producing 2%. So if something seriously happens, major earthquake, anything around here, ferry terminals go down, whatever, you can't bring food here. That's not sustainable. If we're going to move forward in sustainability for our region and for us in the future, or even those that come after us, we need to start regulating the volume of people here for the amount of food. And realistically, to be sustainable, we can no longer continue to keep growing population here without producing the food. And I mean, I don't see how you can say, oh, we're sustainable just because we're building energy efficient homes. That should be BC Building Code standards. Everything should be at that level. There shouldn't be cheap homes anymore being built with black paper on the outside of it. I've gone to an extent of building a very, very green home. In fact, I just had my blower tower test done the other day, and I had a 0.95 leakage rate. That's less than 1 cubic meter of air change between outside and inside per hour. My house is tight. My house is very energy efficient. That's because I'm thinking of the future. So basically what I'm getting at here is that, I mean, this is a development, and it's going to be more, but you got to start regulating the volume of people in the region for your food. If not, you're nowhere sustainable, and I don't believe you have the right to say sustainability, because you're not sustainable, and you're not going forward in a sustainable measure. 2000, when I first started coming here, we started changing the planning process. We actually included stormwater management into what we were doing because we started to think forward. We actually changed our official plan to say sustainable sandwich. Well, to be sustainable, you have to have the food for the people, the water for the people, the food for the water for the land, and the land to create the food, which is the same as we were looking at there at the Blinkenstock or the Mount Doug one. Again, you're taking away agricultural land. We don't have a lot of it. We need to start changing our attitude where we're headed, because if we don't, we're in severe, severe trouble in the future. You know, I know I'm only going to be here for a few more years, maybe whatever. Hopefully I'm here for maybe 30 more, but still, it's those that come after us. And the planning and land use today must represent those that come after us, not today's greed-driven society, because that's what we have right now, is greed-driven society. It's all about money. And in the future, having money and not having any food to buy is going to be just outrageous. So I'm just here basically, I mean, I don't worry about the development, but I'm using the aspect of the food security not being written into your planning reports and saying that we need to start focusing forward on the amount of people versus the food that we have. Because running out of food is going to be just as bad as running out of water. Thank you.
Councillor Mr. Whitcroft, one question.
Sure.
Are you saying we should have no further development?
I say we should have a moratorium until we can at least produce 50% of the food for the people here.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to share? Thank you. Council. Councillor Bryce.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second. Councillor Bryce.
I would like to thank the applicants. That was a very comprehensive and complete application. It maintains a style which was noted earlier was established by the Gardner Green project, and we know that when that was first proposed to the neighborhood there was a bit of a kerfuffle because people wondered if that was going to be something that was good, and obviously it has been a good addition to the community, and this applicant is looking to make his project compatible with that. There's a community association support. The project is respectful of the walking traffic, and I am pleased to see that there's a bus pass offered up. It is well served by transit. I would be interested in the public hearing getting a little more detail about the bus plan, the bus pass plan, and who will get it, for how long, and what kind of program for promoting its use would be provided. I definitely think this project is ready to go to public hearing. The notification has been up on the property for some time, and there's obviously, at this meeting, either folks have positive thoughts about it or are saving their powder for the public hearing. But I think that we are always hoping that when we send something from committee of the whole onto a public hearing, that you're looking for a high probability of success. That's the whole point of the thing, not to take a public hearing to be not to succeed in the end. So all the indicators to me are that this proposal, as it stands now, is ready to go and have that public hearing. So I support that.
Councillor Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In many ways, this is not an unattractive design, and I certainly appreciate some of the energy sustainability features that are involved. I do have some concerns, though, and I'm going to have some difficulty voting for this to go to public hearing. One is the fact that this is pretty intense use of this piece of property. It requires a lot of variances, and it's, in my view, rather crammed in terms of what's there. It's taking advantage of the fact that there's park pathway next to it, and indeed just below it a small public park. We got that because when Mr. Gardner came forward with his application, Council of the day took a larger view, recognized that this is inside of one of the significant, virtually major centers within Saanich, University Heights and surrounding areas. And you expect those properties to become a denser, more compact community over time. One of the things you have to do to get that right, I think, is you have to make sure you've built in the right amenity package. That involves things like public space and green space and so forth, so that the residents who live there find the community that they are living in somewhere where they can have adequate open space and recreation and things of that nature. I grant that Mr. Gardner's project was a larger project, and that was the advantage of it. I saw Mr. Gardner sometime earlier when he was just looking at the project before he put an application in, and I advised him that he should assemble as many properties as possible because it provided an opportunity to create amenity. So not only do we have the pathway through, which is not being added to by this project, but this project in fact takes advantage of it, but we also have that small, or not horribly small, but that internal park and internal green space for the residents. That was part of a concept with the council today to ultimately create an internal green space running right from this property right up into University Heights as it develops someday, and to have that huge public amenity. And this was a first step in it. There is a real risk to losing that if we do one-off zonings, spot zonings, and zonings in isolation. If we wanted to continue that internal green space that we've already created the first piece of, then we would hopefully be looking at this property and the properties to the east of it, where you would have a chance to look at a comprehensive development that said, here's how we're going to continue that plan, and here's how you can add to it. I think the only way we're really going to be successful with major center type development is to have a concept of the amenity that we're trying to accomplish, and then have a situation that encourages either several developments coming together or one aggregation of the land so that we can accomplish that vision that we've established. We run the risk here of a lot of, by themselves, attractive enough small developments, but the end product doesn't come anywhere close to what we should be accomplishing. And I have a real problem with that. It's not entirely the applicant's fault. I wish we'd had a plan some time ago that said, here's what we're trying to accomplish here. Barring that, I've got to look and say, what can I do to encourage that kind of end result as things come forward? This is too small to allow that to happen. If the next property below it to the east comes forward and is too small to allow that to happen, where are we at? You know, we're not going to get where we're going. So I'm probably not going to be able to support this kind of public hearing for those reasons.
Councilor Granoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no doubt that there's a lot of variances on this site, but this is the last site on this block next to a parking lot of Canadian Tire. And the trees that are going to be retained, I think, are significant. I didn't see the single-family homeowner come up to the microphone tonight. I would have thought if they had concerns, they would have come. That property is quite large. That cul-de-sac itself may at some future stage be redeveloped. I like how this development has the patios facing the parkway or the trail or the walkway, similar to what you see when you go along rail yards and stuff. It creates that sort of community feeling to that. I also would like to compliment on the parking pass. I wanted to have more information at the public hearing. It just says 1 pass per unit, which seems a little bit tight. There's probably at least a couple of people living in those units. They are contributing to our affordable housing fund. I think also for me it's important for the landscaping to relook at where we could put some food, growing some food, whether some of the landscaping could be edible, whether, I've seen in other developments where part of the patio, they've got a raised bed of some sort, so you could have a bit of a garden for growing some food. So I wouldn't mind seeing some of that when you come to public hearing. I think this has enough pieces to be forwarded on to public hearing. And then I think what we'll hear is whether the wider population in the area have any concerns about it. But the applicant said they advertised, they only had 2 people at their open house. So I think this is really going on to public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it's generally considered inappropriate to ask a question of staff after some deliberation. But Councillor Dermond's comments got me thinking about building a contiguous greenway through this corridor into what is currently the University Heights property. Although there is actually a non-University Heights property adjacent to that, but I take your point. To our Director of Planning, do you view this application as being that would interfere with the vision of building a contiguous greenway through this corridor? And I guess a portion of that would be, did you take from the previous application direction from council that was the objective in this corridor?
We've always seen a central spine in this corridor as a key objective, and so it's our belief that this is a small isolated parcel and won't thwart that future. Obviously you can argue both sides of that. If you want a very wide swath, I mean, I suppose you could take some land off of the subject property, but then you became to make it unviable economically to do something on it. That's the balance that we were striking.
Thank you. I tend to share that view. Just looking at the way it's configured on the map, I think you can still achieve that contiguous green space based on where it's located in the adjacent property if you were to continue that through. So, but I mean, I think Councillor Dermond's point is perfectly valid. I'm just not prepared to stall this application on that basis. I think that there is still an opportunity to achieve that as the properties to the east of this application develop. And that would be a much larger chunk of property where you could achieve that kind of economic balance, pro forma costs in order to do that. Of course, we also have heard that there's a desire from the owner of the buildings, the commercial buildings just to the south of that to make some changes too. So I do start to see those pieces coming together. I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to do that as one comprehensive package. But I certainly want to see that take place. So just with respect to what we have before us, I think this is certainly worthy of public hearing. I think that the design concept has been done sensitively, and there are a number of attributes that are very supportable as part of this application. I also wanted to comment on Mr. Whitcroft's remarks. I agree to a certain extent with what he's saying. I view, though, creating these major centers or nodes of density as doing exactly what he's suggesting, where we would be protecting the land that can remain in production. I think it may be challenging to put land in the Shelburne Valley into production, even though at some point it had been in production, just given its current state and knowing the challenges we have about farming in a residential area. So I certainly agree with the spirit of what he's arguing, but I would see creating density in major centers as conducive to keeping farming lands for farming. That being